Hello, my friends, it's Danny, and today I'm super excited because I had the opportunity to sit down with Isabel Foxen Duke. She is the founder of Stop Fighting Food, which is a free video series to quote unquote help women stop feeling crazy around food. I love her work and I cannot wait to share our conversation with you. I will leave everything you need to know about Isabella down in the description box below, so be sure to check it out to learn more about her, to check out her work, and to sign up for her free video series. And if you have any questions or comments about everything we chat about throughout our conversation, come on down, leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer each and every single one. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Isabel Foxen Duke. Enjoy. Hello, Isabel. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
Super fun. So let's just start with you giving a little bit of background on yourself and how you have come to do the work you're doing today and how you are helping people stop feeling crazy around food.
Yes, that is what I do. And, the answer, I think, like many people, before me have experienced just in the health and wellness field, the reason my tagline is helping women stop feeling crazy around food was because that was how I personally felt my entire life until I sort of learned and strung together some of the things that I now teach. But yeah, I was, a lot of people have heard me say this on, other interviews and podcasts. I kind of always start my story with saying I was put on my first diet. I was put on my first diet for weight control when I was 3 years old, which was it was like a low carb, whatever that was recommended by my pediatrician because apparently I was a chubby baby.
So crazy.
Which is why, it's weird. It's crazy to think about. And so, my parents just like dutifully trying to do the right thing. I guess I was high on the baby BMI scale. My pediatrician was like, oh, she's better watch her weight. She's a chubby baby, And from that point forward, my food was always a topic of like discussion in my family. Like I never felt like my body was okay. Even as I grew up, like quote unquote the thinner child at one point in my life, but I still never felt okay. I mean, it was basically a trauma had happened. Like I always felt like my body was not okay. I always felt like I, had to watch everything I ate. And one of the symptoms of this, right, one of the consequences of this, like constantly feeling like I have to watch everything that I put in my mouth and my body's not okay, my body's not good enough, and I have to lose weight. And, the life that I'm dreaming about is, 5, 10, 30 pounds away, depending on the point in my life. One of the consequences of this was that, I was, basically constantly, effectively sitting on my hands, trying not to eat, like holding myself back from the food all the time. And as a result, I was just thinking about food all the time. And I would have these episodes where I would just completely lose it and could not hold myself back 1 second longer, whether it be from hunger or just the feeling of feeling like you're in a cage and you're not supposed to touch the candy, but like it's like, being a kid in a toy store where, you just are being told not to touch the toys and all you want to do is touch the toys. And so I had this, I would have these sort of binge eating episodes basically where I would just be like, screw it. And I would just, kind of rummage through my cabinets. I remember being a little kid, not so little, even into like middle school, teen years, as time went on, kind of going into the kitchen at night and like sneak eating food because I was so embarrassed. Like I was clearly not supposed to do this. And that sort of was my life. It was a constant yo-yoing between trying to get my food under control, trying to, make my food, just try to get it under my thumb, just try to get my body right, just try to get my food right, just try to get it under control. And then followed by these massive swings in the other direction where I would just completely lose control, so to speak, where I would just be like, I just can't hold back 1 second longer. And, of course, at the time, I just thought that there was something deeply wrong with me that I couldn't control.
So much shame, right? So much shame, so much guilt.
Oh, yeah. I just felt like, what is wrong with you? And as the swings, as the oscillations from more extreme restriction and more extreme binging got more intense, I just thought like there is something super deeply wrong with me. And again, I'm going to just point out really quickly, I always thought the answer to binging was more extreme restriction, right? Like every time I would have these episodes where I would just like eat everything that wasn't nailed down or like fall off the wagon, so to speak, the answer was always day one starts tomorrow, like get back on the horse. Like, and it was always just became, it was like, what's the newest diet? What's the diet that's going to save my life? Like I was, you know, is it veganism? Is it Atkins? Is it da-da-da? Is it blah, blah, blah? It was just always something that I thought, it was always like the next level of diet that I thought was going to fix this. And that was just my whole life for, I mean, basically until I was in, you know, college. Thankfully, I got into the recovery world pretty young, but yeah, my whole life until college was just these wild oscillations back and forth, you know, diet binge. And it didn't even occur to me. No one said to me, you know, perhaps, you know, this is, you know, an issue of like, you're actually maybe not getting the nutrients you need because you're dieting and you're not actually feeding yourself correctly because you're dieting all the time and, you know, all these things. And that's why your body's rebelling.
And just to say for a minute, like, I think that's so normal and that most people who have dieted or had this experience, including myself, the harder you restrict, the bigger the binge, the harder you restrict, the bigger the binge, that it never occurs to you that this could have to do with something other than you're doing something wrong.
Right. It just, because we're sold this all day long. It's a willpower issue. It's a willpower issue. Like we as a culture completely deny the reality that like we're actually animals. Like we're mammals, like human mammals. Like we're basically monkeys, you know, and like animals are not, you know, supposed to be able to starve themselves. You know, like we have biological instincts within us that will actually literally drive us to food, whether we want to or not at some point. And so, yeah, so this is, and, you know, now all this is like so clear to me that it really just was a matter of willpower. And like, it really was just a matter of like me getting it right and doing it right. And if I wanted to eat, you know, what XYZ number of calories a day, I damn well could if I tried hard enough.
So
right.
let me do this if you don't mind, because I'd love for people to hear, what is your definition of a diet and why is it that diets are kind of inevitably set up to fail?
Yeah, well, so that's a good question. So, well, at the time, right, a diet just meant like an attempt at weight loss, basically, right? Like trying to control my food to try to control and manipulate the size of my body. And, you know, when people say diets don't work, I feel like that gets thrown around a lot and people don't necessarily know what it means. But that's from a scientific perspective, what it means. Like when people say diets don't work, what that actually means from like a like evidence-based perspective is like, there is not a single study that shows that somebody can manipulate their food for the purpose of weight loss and keep off a significant amount of weight for, you know, a period of time for more than 3 to 5 years. Like
actually sustainable.
What?
That would actually be sustainable.
Yeah, most people will rebound. Alter food for the purpose of weight loss for somehow. And if they lose, you know, a significant amount of weight, which for most studies is like 30 pounds or more, right? Most of those people, 95% of people, right? You hear this statistic thrown around, 95% of diets fail. 95% of people who lose weight, lose a quote, significant amount of weight through food manipulation will gain it back within 3 to 5 years.
And what's so interesting about that too is then we spend so much time looking at that moment in time like that was the glory moment, and we have to figure out how to get back to that place that we couldn't sustain.
Right. And so that's the cycle, right? Like this is either the diet binge cycle, which it certainly was for me, where it was like restrict, binge. But for some people, they don't necessarily experience it in these like, you know, kind of wild binge eating episodes. For other people, it's just kind of on the wagon, off the wagon, on the wagon, off the wagon, or weight cycling, right? Which means like lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. That is 95% of people who are trying to attempt weight controlling behaviors will experience this, right? And, you know, I think that there's a lot of confusion about, you know, just weight science in our culture, right? Because we're really sold this idea that like, it's just up to you to just be whatever weight you want to be. And you just, you know, throw the dart on the wall, choose your goal weight, and then just do the things to get you there. And that's the reality of the situation is we just don't have a lot of evidence that human beings functionally operate that way, right? Like we have these biological instincts in place that, you know, oftentimes make that really difficult or even impossible. So, you know, from a scientific perspective, and we can talk more about this because this is relevant to some of the questions that I know you want to ask me. from a scientific perspective, a diet is just like a forcible attempt at weight loss through food manipulation. That being said, for me, right, one of the things that happened, so I mentioned, when I got to college, that was, I kind of had this crash and burn moment. I was like, what's wrong with me? I can't keep doing this. And I came across some book, about like, quote unquote, like compulsive overeating or emotional eating or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's my problem. Like, I'm an emotional eater. I'm a binge eater. This is my problem. I have like a mental illness where I just can't control myself around food. And so I sought treatment eventually. And there's more to this story, but to cut it short, eventually I got into treatment for binge eating disorder. And that began like this whole other journey of trying to get get control over my food, not just for weight loss or even not just for weight control, although that was obviously always in the back of my head as a motivator, right? Because I was obsessed with it. I mean, really, like if I wasn't obsessed with trying to control my weight, I would have no food problem. Like your food problem evaporates when you're just like, this is my body and it's fine. But functionally speaking, I also had this secondary narrative, which is like, this is an illness, this is a pathology, there's something wrong with me, that I can't get my food under control. And there was this like whole moralistic thing about like, how am I going to finally get my food under control? Am I going to like take a warm bath instead of eating when I want to eat cookies? Do I like, how much therapy do I have to do to not want the cookie, and this is the narrative. And so it kind of like doubled down. Like it wasn't just about weight anymore. It was about like me being a binge eater and like overcoming my dark problem. And so, yeah. And so I kind of went on this roller coaster, ended up in treatment. I was in like a 6-week, rehab program or whatever. They put me on a meal plan. That did not work. And this was like a pretty fancy, like hoity-toity, like clinical rehab. I think my parents spent like upwards of $100,000 on inpatient treatments for me around the country at different points in my young adult life. And it ultimately what I left with was like, stick to this meal plan, which in my head, I was like, oh, it's not a diet, it's a meal plan. But it was, I treated it like a diet. Right?
Well,
like
I think that is such a great point. I don't mean to interrupt you. It's just very exciting. Yeah. It's also exciting.
Yes.
I think that's something that I'm always trying to communicate, because I've learned that in my own journey, is that dieting is really a way of thinking. And if you are a dieter, you can turn anything into a diet attempt.
Exactly. So basically, like, this is sort of like the what ended up happening was, I was like on this meal plan, thinking I'm doing the like mentally healthful thing and like healing my binge eating, can't stick to it. In and out of different like recovery support groups to stick to my meal plan. My meal plan's always changing, right? It's just like when I was in high school, where it's like the new meal plan. It's like the new thing is, oh, you're addicted to flour and sugar, so don't eat flour and sugar, and that's the reason you're binging. Or the new thing is, just eat 3 meals and nothing in between, or the real that, right? Like the different way of even fixing my quote binge eating problem was like changing seats on the Titanic. And really it looked exactly the way it did when I was just like straight up like hardcore dieting for weight loss when I was in high school. So eventually I ended up, discovering intuitive eating. And, somebody kind of was like, psh, 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 like, have you heard of this book by this woman named Janine Roth? And kind of learned about these whole concepts of hunger and fullness and how your body actually tells you what it needs. And that was like mind blowing to me. I was like, oh my God, I haven't even thought about whether or not I was hungry. Like I've spent my whole life just trying to eat what was on whatever sheet of paper I was trying to follow that day. It didn't like the idea of listening to my body for like cues around food was like totally just earth shattering. And so I, kind of jumped on the intuitive eating bandwagon, jumped on the intuitive eating, train really, really hard. But again, that sort of diet mentality, as you say, really, really hit me even with intuitive eating. Like all of the sudden it was, okay, you're only going to eat when you're hungry and you're not going to eat past like this certain point of full, which like, what does that even mean? Certain point of full? Like, where is that line? Like, how do you know what, like, you know what I mean? Like that's a fuzzy line, right? And I was just coming and what, right? And like, what amount of hunger is okay for me to eat, right? And I started just approaching even intuitive eating, which seemed like this really freeing, liberating concept of you don't need to be on a traditional diet. You don't need other people to tell you how to eat. You actually can listen to yourself, and you can listen to your body, and you can listen to your physical body tell you what you need. I still ended up applying these very like rigid diet mentality rules to intuitive eating. So if I got too full, I would feel like I failed, right? Like if I had like if I ate emotionally in quotes, which basically just meant whenever I wasn't hungry, I would feel like, oh, I'm off the wagon, right? And sometimes that would even trigger binge eating, right? And so another reason I think, classically binge eating is considered like a reaction to physical restriction, but it can also be just this feeling like, there's a lot of different things that can trigger binge eating. And one of them is this feeling of I failed, right? I failed. I've fallen off the wagon. Screw it. I might as well eat everything else, everything that isn't nailed down. And then tomorrow's day one, and I'm only going to eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full starting tomorrow. Right. And so this was the new, this became, I ended up dealing with a lot of the same problems that I was dealing with when I was doing, traditional meal plans, traditional diets, whatever, in the context of intuitive eating. Right. And again, just beating myself up whenever I would eat too much. Right. Which it was a line that I just invented in my own basically fat-fearing brain.
Yes.
So and that becomes really relevant really soon.
I was just going to say, I feel like that's such important context, and I've heard you talk about it a bazillion times. But the idea that, and this still feels confusing to me sometimes, is that, if you truly want to create freedom with food, you truly have to be able to accept your body where it. So would you say that in order to have complete freedom with food, you really truly have to give up the desire to change your body?
Okay, this is where words become really important. So the desire to be thin, lots of people have the desire to be thin in our culture. Our culture is super toxic and oppressive towards especially women's bodies. Yeah, like we, constantly are giving people rewards and status, to the thinnest body possible, beauty in general, which is so wrapped up in this thinness culture right now is, it means a ton in our culture, right? And people are very, very, very much socially sanctioned and socially punished for fatness, right? And so this is a real serious cultural issue that is hugely screwed up, like ruins people's lives. I mean, certainly ruined my life for a period of years until I was able to say, screw you. This is a real issue, right? Like the idea that I can't imagine not wanting to be thin in this culture on some level, right? And it's basically what you're saying is I want to be treated well. I want to be given social cookies. I want, status, love, acceptance, and praise. Obviously, I would want those things, right? So I think that we need to be really clear when we're talking about body image and when we're talking about body acceptance, right, that it does not mean, that I never have moments where I don't know if even the language of I want to be thin is the right way to think about it, because when you start to get really deep into your body acceptance work, you start to realize it's not I want to be thin. It's I want to be loved. I want to be accepted. I want to be treated as a human being. I want to be treated, with all the cookies and status and praise. And I want everyone to be attracted to me. And I want people to want to be my friends, right? That's actually what you want when you are saying, or when you think to yourself, I want to be thin, right? For the most part.
And the diet culture sells us that skinny gets you all of those things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's I think it's natural to have that quote desire to be thin in our culture when thinness, but not because of thinness itself, because of what we make thinness mean, right? So it's when you start to do deeper body image work, you start to really get clear, it's not even necessarily thinness in a vacuum that I really care about. What I care about is people thinking I'm cool and sexy. What I care about is people treating me well. What I care about is, companies making clothing in my size that's cute and cool. You know what I mean? All of these types of things. And so I think we got to get very particular about our language and how we really understand this issue. So yeah, that desire is natural, normal. I think that, to some extent, I don't know if there's a way around wishing, right, that you would be treated the way that people who are, have lots of thin privilege get treated, right? That being said, wanting to be thin and actively self-harming yourself so that you can try to get those things through the strategy of dieting, two very different things, right? I could wish that people would treat me like Gisele Bündchen gets treated. But I'm not going to self-harm myself. I'm not going to starve myself. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not going to do unhealthy, unsafe things with food. I'm not going to actively try to fit my square peg of a body into the round hole that I think it should look like. I'm not going to treat my animal self, right? My mammal, my body that breathes me, that, wear my clothes, that keeps me alive, like that, just to try to get the approval and status that culture would bestow upon me if I could succeed at it, which, by the way, I probably biologically cannot. I mean, at the end of the day, 95% of people are just trying. They're not getting there permanently anyway, right? And so this is, a really important distinction, is the difference between wanting to be thin and I'm going to actively do unhealthy, harmful things to myself to try to squeeze my square peg of a body into the round hole that I think will get me all the cookies and praise. 95% chance it's not going to work anyway, at least not permanently, right? Like 95% chance I'm going to end up yo-yoing and just weight cycling my whole life, or diet binge cycling or whatever. And if I am one of those rare people who can lose 50 pounds and keep it off by working out and eating low carb every single day for the rest of my life, that's a lot. I would still consider that a self-harming behavior on some level, right? That is, your life revolves around squeezing your square peg of a body into that round hole, right? I don't feel jealous of people who are magically able, who are in that very small percentage of people who are able to successfully weight suppress long-term. I don't feel jealous of them. I mean, so those are some of my most challenging and most, those are some of the clients that I have that are in the most pain because their life revolves around maintaining it, and they're terrified of stepping out, which means that they can't live their lives fully.
It's true. I know exactly what you mean, and I feel like it makes your life this big, right? Because all of your energy is right here. It's so small. You
can't even enjoy the status and the cookies and the love and the acceptance because you can't even go out to dinner with them, or if you're there, you can't have a conversation because you're just trying not to eat the bread in the bread basket the whole time. That is your life.
I know too, because I've been there. That's the scary. I've been there. But okay, so let's clarify for those who might need a little clarification. So would the mental shift be, I want to take amazing care of my body versus I want to somehow change my body? Because what if you're somebody who's no, I would really truly like to lose some weight or move some more or eat a better diet or have more energy. But I guess those are just all so many different conversations that I'm squishing into losing to a body size.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing, is separating health and weight.
Yes.
Right? Separating health and weight. Right now we live in a culture where trying to look a certain way and trying to get the status and the cookies and the love and the praise and the acceptance are all tied up with our health goals, which is super screwed up because this is a self-defeating, this trying to get this cookies and the status and the blah, 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 and then trying to look a certain way. But that is a super self-defeating, often very unhealthy goal for the vast majority of people. I might say all people, but I'll just be safe and be conservative and say the vast majority of people. Okay. And then you have over here, really well-intended things I want to eat vegetables and I want to go for, work out and run and move my body and do things that actually make me feel good and help me take care of myself so that I can live well. Right. I mean, my pursuit of health should be in support of my living well and having a great life, right? And feeling good. And those are very two separate things. So what we call this, there's actually a name for this. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend you read this book. It's called Health at Every Size. Are you familiar with this concept?
I am, but I have not read it.
Okay. So Health at Every Size, basically, it's super misunderstood. I think the title of it is a little confusing and weird. So you can kind of just excuse the title, but I'll just explain what it actually means. So the pursuit of health at every size means my attitude towards health is to pursue healthy behaviors, right? Eating vegetables, going for walk runs, intuitive eating, right? Things that make me feel good physically, things that help me care for this body, irrespective of her size, right? Just, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, basic things that make me feel good, right? Like basic healthful behaviors that help me take care of myself the way 200 years ago somebody might have tried to take care of themselves, and they didn't give a shit about weight because it wasn't fashionable to be thin 200 years ago. But they still wanted to take care of themselves. They still wanted to eat good, nourishing foods and get enough sleep and drink enough water and manage stress and all of these things, right? The pursuit of health, right? Without making it all about what I'm going to look like at the end. Right? Pursue health in whatever way feels good to me, whatever way feels uniquely good to me, and allow my body to look however she wants to look. And I'm doing those things.
I feel that for so many women, it's like an act of courage to be able to stand in those shoes to say, well, what if I just show up and take really good care of my body, and then I just give my body permission to land where it lands and let that be okay.
This is it, right? Like, this is what we're talking about. This is what, all the body positive people, right? And I think that there's so much confusion. There's a lot of trolling and hatred around body. I mean, you would be amazed at the negative reactions that people have to some of these concepts, because again, there's just a lot of misunderstanding around body acceptance and body positivity, right? This is not anti-health, right? This is, in whatever way that health is important and valuable to you individually, go for it. Have a blast, right? Make yourself feel good. But perhaps that you might be happier, and perhaps you might feel better, and perhaps you might even find that your health goals are more sustainable if they're not about trying to fit your square peg of a body into a round hole, and actually about taking care of the body that you genetically and biologically are predisposed to having, right? Because and this brings up another really important topic, which is people actually do come in all different shapes and sizes, naturally, biologically, and genetically. And that is not something that we as a culture like to talk about. That is something that the diet industry absolutely hates talking about, despite the fact that there is just mountains and mountains and mountains of evidence that you could have a thin person who's sitting around eating Doritos all day and they're just thin, and we call it fast metabolism. They're just genetically thin people, right? That's just, their body is just working to be thin all time. They could just go, they can, do whatever the hell they want health-wise, and they're still going to be thin, right? And then there are people who take really good care of themselves, who work out, who exercise, who eat vegetables on a regular basis, who are having nutritious, healthful, balanced meals, who are balancing their blood sugar, who are, eating foods for heart health, who are doing all of these things that, even prevent quote unquote weight-related diseases like diabetes or heart disease, and really managing these things really beautifully. And they just naturally, biologically are just going to be a little bit bigger, right? Or even a lot bigger, right? There is body diversity exists, right? We are not all iPhone 6s. We're not necessarily all supposed to look the same size, right? And the politics of the BMI charts, right, are, complicated and not very scientific, quite frankly. It's here we have a spread of different body sizes, and we're just going to say that the middle, actually the thin half of the middle is, average. That's the average, size that people should be. Everyone should be in the middle of the bell curve. When in the reality, the situation is people are just naturally exist on all sizes of the bell curve, right? Maybe the majority will exist in the middle of the bell curve, right? Because it's all based on averages. But that does not mean that somebody who's on, other side of the bell curve isn't healthy. Now, they may be. Are there, of course, people of all sizes, including larger bodied plus size people who aren't managing their diabetes and who aren't, moving or eating vegetables? Yeah. And I think in a lot of instances, the reasons for that are much more complicated than that they're just lazy and don't have willpower, right? I mean, that's the reality of the situation, is that there are a lot of institutional reasons why people don't have access to nutritious foods and don't have the ability to like work out on a regular basis. And there's financial considerations and all sorts of issues going on. I think, this idea that larger bodied people, fat people are just, out to lunch or uneducated misfits or lazy or whatever is just completely asinine. I mean, like, come on, personally, I have not yet met a person who is larger bodied who hadn't at least attempted to diet because they're being discriminated against all the time, right? And they're being, there's so much prejudice treated against them, And so it's like, yeah, they've thought about it a bunch and they've tried really, really hard. This is not for lack of trying. This is not a moral issue. This is a genetic issue, right? Some people, right? Or it's a financial issue or it's whatever, right? There's different reasons. But I think that, there are always going to be, just like there are unhealthy thin people who eat Doritos all day long. There are obviously, of course, larger bodied fat people who, are, not having a harder time taking care of themselves for any number of reasons. And there are also larger bodied people who take great, wonderful care of themselves, right? And right now they're basically, excuse my language, getting shit on by our medical system, which has just decided, for, again, a variety of political reasons that health is nothing more than the number on the scale and that the number on the scale is going to be, is just like the thing. Like your health is just determined by this one thing. And it's really damaging and it's really caused a lot of harm, a lot of pain to a lot of people. But yeah, I hope that I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, it's because there's so much and it's also interconnected. It's so hard to like stop it all. But let me ask this. So what could be a step for somebody who's maybe just having an aha moment of going, oh, there's a diet culture and I'm a part of this kind of bigger place. And how can I just start to create space between me and it? Because it's quite an undertaking, right? But just like a first step, an awareness.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the second you realize that oh, wow, thin and fat aren't necessarily good angel and bad devil, right? And you start to see how intense the just really awful cultural narratives around this are. I think a perfect example is when you go on the news and people are showing, the obesity epidemic and they always show people with their head cut off because, to be caught in public in a fat body would be the most shameful thing in the world. Meanwhile, if we were having a conversation about, diabetes or heart disease or cancer, those people are allowed to have heads in the news because, it's not a horrible shame to have an actual physical illness, right? But it is a horrible shame to be fat, right? That right there should just teach us that this is not about health. This is about discrimination, prejudice. This is about bigotry, and I think anyone who's just being brutally honest with themselves, knows that, right? I think, of course there are people who will say, I'm really, really concerned about my health because the doctors are just plowing through running the health, it's just so intense. You're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die of fatness, you're going to die, which is again, not necessarily true. Take good care of yourself and you'll significantly limit your chances of dying irrespective of how big you are. Once you kind of start to see the BS, right? Once you start to see oh, wow, I remember when I was young, it was of course fat is bad and thin is good. And I never questioned it. And it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around. I think I remember kind of having this moment of oh my God, this is bigotry. This is prejudice. And this is, cultural, this is oppression, basically, especially of women, but increasingly of all gendered people. And so how do I separate? What are the first steps to separating?
Well,
number one, read health at every size.
So that's great. So reading health at every size, but also something I know that helped me, right, was creating a little space. So what you see on magazines and what you see on TV, and then noticing if you're in a locker room or if you're at a gym and looking at how many of the people around you really look like those covers of a magazine or really look like the people that are on TV, right? You start to go wow, that's not really real. And also another thing that I thought was helpful, I'm just going to come up with my own answers here, is that recognizing that everybody's trying to sell you something, right? Like, we're going to make you believe you're broken so we can sell you the fix, and almost using that realization as a little fuel for your fire to be like, oh, wait a second, you know?
Yeah. And I think on the flip side of that, something that I always have clients do is like go look at some body positive Instagram accounts. Like, not like take out triggering stuff, like take out stuff that makes you feel like you're not okay the way you are. You are fundamentally okay the way you are, right? Like, you're beautiful. I promise, girl, right? Take that shit out. Like, take out what doesn't make you feel good. Like, you don't need to look at stuff on the internet that doesn't make you feel good. But then I think the second part of that, because our culture is so intense and it's like we're just swimming in this diet culture water all the time, and it's almost like telling a fish not to swim. Like, it's like, right. Another thing that we have to do is we have to add in body positive stuff. So like you said, like, start to notice like body diversity in your community and around you. But you can also use the internet's a super, super powerful tool for introducing like, you know, plus size models. I mean, which, by the way, plus size model means like size 6 and up. Yeah. But like looking at plus size models, like what's amazing about plus size models is like there's such a variety. I mean, it literally just means like a model who isn't a straight size 2, 4 at the most model, right? So there are plus size models, or sometimes they call it like curves models or natural models, you know, depending on the scenario, that can range in size anywhere from like size 6 to like 24. You know, I usually say to people, you know, follow people who are your size or bigger on Instagram. Like, that's one of the first things to be doing, is follow people your size or bigger on Instagram and look at it literally 5-10 minutes a day. Sometimes I'll have people, if they're really overwhelmed by their Instagram accounts, or like, you know, find social media triggering, because social media definitely has a dark side, like make a separate account that's just for following body positive people. And then, you know, literally look at that account 5-10 minutes a day as like I call it like a de-brainwashing exercise, you know, from all of the BS. And find people who resonate with you. Yeah.
So good. Okay, so now I have to ask, because I'm so curious, because so much of what I do here on this channel is, you know, we cook and we eat and we talk about foods that are healthy. Okay, so I use that term lightly. But, you know, just making more nutritious food choices and finding really easy, simple ways to do that. But something I'm extremely cognitive of, and I'm always trying to think of, is like, what is the line, right, to be empowering people to eat well without going down a slippery slope of like, we're dieting or we need to eat well to so basically my question is, how does nutrition fit into all of this? You know, where does it land?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, it's going to be different for different people, like what different people can handle. I mean, I'm a person who I work with people like all up and down, like sort of like the disordered eating spectrum, right? Like some people like are just not in a place where they can talk about gentle nutrition, like period, end of discussion. And that's fine. Like if that's where you are, like you're like that's really okay. There are other people who are like really in a place where they're like, I want to take care of my bodies and I want to like, you know, talk about nutrition and, you know, make healthy meals, but I don't want it to be about dieting and I don't want to go down that diet binge rabbit hole. And one of those, I think the most important thing is the sort of health at every size perspective of like, I'm learning to make foods that make me feel good and that energize me. And that, you know, this is not about weight. This is a weight neutral thing, right? Like truly and deeply. And that can be hard for people, that transition, because we're so brainwashed into thinking that nutrition is a weight thing. And we're so brainwashed into thinking like good foods equals thin and bad foods equals fat and da, 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 da. So I think, you know, and if anyone's struggling with this, go to my website, because I talk about this a ton, like how to actually get out of the mindset of thinking about nutrition in this really weight-centered way and start thinking about nutrition as something that is really just truly about self-care and feeding yourself in a way that makes you feel good and makes you feel energized and, you know, helps you take care of yourself, right? And that's a huge shift. So number one, weight neutral, like shifting to a weight neutral. Like this is not about like I have a very, very strict weight neutral policy when I talk about nutrition at all. Number two, like being respectful. Like if you need to take a break from nutrition talk, like that's okay. Like the reality of the situation is like there are tons of people who are not in a place where they really need to like learn the latest nutrition thing. Like they've been studying and obsessed for 20 years. And if you need to take a break, like that's okay. That actually might be required and necessary. Number three, I think one of this, and I don't get to talk about this enough, but I'm glad you brought it up. There has to be enough you have to be hitting your major food groups, and you have to be getting enough calories, right? So one of the problems with healthy eating is that people end up accidentally serving them meals that are literally just not calorically satisfying, or literally just not, they're just not getting enough carbs, fat, protein, right? Like whatever it is. And that can be really problematic. And then, of course, they end up rebelling just physically, right? Like irrespective of whether or not they're doing for weight, they end up like falling off the health wagon, right? Because they were just not getting enough food. And, they're having, egg whites and whole wheat toast for breakfast when actually they need like yolks and they need bacon and they need, whatever else. They need hearty meals. Like most people need filling hearty meals on a regular basis. And I think one of the issues with the health world is that sort of by accident, people end up cutting calories when it's really not appropriate. And then they wonder why they fell off the wagon. It's like, because you're hungry, right? Like when you're eating healthfully, right? When you're eating healthfully, that does not mean eating less, right? Like you should be getting the calories you need to support your natural body weight, right? And making sure that you're eating enough food. Like for me, healthy means things like balancing my blood sugar. It means things like getting enough water, right? And so it means things like eating fruits and vegetables, but not at the cost of getting the amount of food that I need and the amount of macronutrients that I need. Like it's like when I'm eating healthfully versus like kind of not eating healthfully, my weight doesn't really change that much because in either scenario, I'm getting food. I'm getting calories. I'm getting, good, hearty, oftentimes like, rich foods. And so like, I think that that's an important thing to remember, right? It's a really, really good, it's really, really important. So weight neutral, you got to make sure you're eating enough and getting like full, getting fully satisfied. Also, there has to be room, and I'll say this is my last point on this. There has to be room for being messy, right? And this is something there has to be room for, what? If I eat something that's not healthy, that's okay too.
Right.
There has to be room for messiness. There has to be room for imperfection.
And I've heard you say this too, which I think is also important for people to hear, which is that, and sometimes, you eat and you're not hungry. Like you just want a donut and then like, it's okay. Not everything has to be rationalized and analyzed and, figured out to the T.
Right. Like in my mind, I think one of the biggest problems with sort of like healthy, the way that healthy is described in our culture is it's talked about like it's a regimen that I'm supposed to stick to. And that's problematic because then it's like I'm on the wagon or I'm off the wagon. I'm on the wagon or I'm off the wagon, right? Another way that I've talked about dieting, and you've heard my definition, this is in my video training series, you've heard this definition of dieting probably, which is, a diet is a way of eating to which I feel emotionally attached. Meaning like I feel like if I don't eat that way, I feel badly about myself. I feel shitty about myself if I eat the unhealthy thing. And that's super problematic. Like for me, chocolate cake is a mental health food.
Right.
Like sometimes
me too.
Right? Like sometimes I need chocolate cake. Like sometimes like I need foods that are just like pleasurable treats. And there's literally, not only is there nothing wrong with that, like sometimes it's like a great, wonderful thing. Like it's a pleasurable thing. It's a social thing. Like that's actually important. It's actually healthy for me to be able to eat sweets and treats and, things like that.
And I think it's such an important distinction, right? That when we're emotionally attached to a way of eating, that sometimes we come to believe that the food is making us feel a certain way when it's what we are thinking and believing about the food that is making us feel a certain way.
Absolutely. So this is like another thing, like people will come to me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I got so full and I just don't feel good. And it's just not making me feel good. And, they like freaking out about how they like overshot at dinner or whatever. And I'm like, okay, how much of your pain right now is physical and how much of it is emotional? Like on a pie chart. Like if we were going to do a pie chart and I was going to ask you like, what percentage of this pie chart is like actual physical discomfort? And what percentage of this pie chart is anxiety about the fact that you're really full? Right. And usually it's like, I've never heard anyone say less than 50-50. Like I've never heard anyone say like less than 50% of it was emotional. And I'm like, so guess what? Did you know that if you decided that you're fine the way you are and it's not a big deal, 50% of your pain would literally just evaporate right now. right? And so that's huge for people. Yeah, that's huge for people. It's like, you know what? Sometimes you're going to get full. Sometimes you're going to eat when you're not hungry. Sometimes you're going to eat like whatever snack that like isn't particularly sugar balanced because, you know, YOLO and say lovey, you know, and like, and that's just the deal, you know, like that's just what it is. And our ability, I would say personally, my definition of recovery from disordered eating, from diet binge cycling, from just like the craziness around food, my definition of not being crazy around food is really about that. How deeply can you emotionally let go and just be cool with your food the way it is? That doesn't mean doesn't mean like go eat nothing but Snicker bars and like, you know, never do anything that makes you actually physically feel good or energized or whatever. But it's just like, if you eat something that doesn't make you feel good, can you let it go? Right? Like that's quote unquote normal eating right there. Right? I think people like to think, because there's, you know, a lot of conversation about like what sort of disordered eating or abnormal and what's normal eating. Normal eating, as you mentioned earlier, right, is a state of mind. Normal eating means you can chill out. Normal eating means you can let go. You can like, you know, if you have the salad and that's what you want, great. But like you can also have whatever it is that's lying around at night because you got home after a few glasses of wine and we're just, you know, eating out of the fridge and it's just not that big of a deal. Like it really is just food, right? And that is honestly like the core of my work. Like the core, and you know this from my emails and stuff, the core of my work is helping people just relax, like just chill out. And that's ultimately where I got. I mean, I know I kind of cut off my story a little bit, but you know, after having this experience with intuitive eating where I was applying the same diet mentality to intuitive eating, like, oh my God, I ate too much. I'm way too full. I ate when I wasn't hungry. I ate emotionally. That's bad. Blah, 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 right? I finally just got to a place where I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, it's fine. Like, I just don't care. Like, I cannot live my life obsessed with what I ate that day. I just can't do it. Like, sometimes I'm going to, you know, if I, you know, I love to eat things that make me feel good. I love fruit. I like, you know, I know that I'm going to feel better. And so it's really easy for me to like throw cheese or peanut butter or meat into the mix if I'm going to have something sweet, just so that I'm not like having a wild blood sugar spike or whatever. But for the most part, you know, I just don't care that much, right? Like food has its rightful place in my life, which is just like a thing that I do because it like feels good and it's pleasurable. And by the way, it gives me energy and nourishment. And that's it. Like, it's just not a big deal. And that is just such an intent. Again, I know easier said than done. That's why I offer like programs and classes about how to do this, right? Like, isn't this the goal, right? Isn't the goal, like, I don't sell weight loss. I sell sanity. You know, I sell chill the F out. You're fine, right? And like, let's talk about how to eat the way maybe your husband eats, right? Like a lot of people see this with their husbands. Again, there's tons of crazy around food husbands out there. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, oftentimes I think about like the 16-year-old boy with the backwards cap who's just like eating, yeah, I ate some pizza. I ate some whatever. I don't really care. Doesn't think about it, right? Like it's not on his brain 24/7. It's just food.
I've told this before, but it's interesting.
No, it really is just food. There's a way to actually, you can come back to a place of just, it's just food. And that's what I teach. I teach people how to just be food, how to just chill with food.
Yes. And I do think, though, like we were mentioning earlier, that's also like being willing to be okay with your body is such a huge pre-component to that. Because I know for me, I'm going back 10 years ago when I was pregnant with my first child, and it was the first time in my life where I truly stopped dieting because I felt like I had permission to be in the body I was in. I was like, oh, like you're supposed to get round and you're supposed to, like, I didn't have to make an excuse for my body. And It was the first time in my life where I was just like, I just wanted to nourish I just didn't think about it other than I wanted to take care of my baby, you know?
Right.
I wanted to take care of me at that point. It was I wanted to take care of my baby. But still, it took me out of dieting.
Yeah, totally,
but it was so tied into the body, so tied into like surrendering the need to change my body first. And when you take that off the table, the food becomes a lot easier. But that's loaded in and of itself.
So, and you kind of bring up this, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but like the difference between like body love and body, you know, I don't know, whatever, liking my body or thinking I'm really sexy versus like body acceptance. Like there are lots of teachers who do body image work, myself included, to help women really get to the place where they can like actually think they're sexy in the body they have and actually really like the body they have. And, you know, that's an awesome goal. But way before we can get to that goal, let's just start with body acceptance. Like, this is just what it is. Like, it doesn't, like, I don't need to like think it's super hot or anything. I just need to accept it the way that I accept that the sky is blue. Like, this is just what it is. And like, I'm going to just relax about it, you know, like.
To think of it too is like, when I think of body love, I think of body love as a verb, right? So meaning I wash my body. I put moisturizer on my body. I care for my body. Not like praising, hallelujah, you look beautiful in a bikini, but like love is a verb. How do you show up with the action of love and offer that to your body?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's absolutely right. Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
Well, I clearly could chat with you all day, but I know you got things to do. So
I'm really pretty.
Let's do this. Let's share. I have it, but I'm going to leave all of this down in my description box. But just tell a little bit about your free video series that people can access right now if they want to dive a little deeper into this as soon as they stop watching this video.
Yeah. So if you're feeling a little crazy around food and you're like, yeah, I would really like some of that, like chilling out, like feeling like it's no big deal feeling. Or also if you're struggling with like binge eating, like diet cycling, like compulsive overeating, like all these things where you're like, oh my God, I can't stop. I feel out of control, blah, 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 which is how most of my clients honestly find me, because you would be amazed at what this chilling out can do to heal binge eating. Go to stopfightingfood.com. That's where my free video training series is. And it's like a really great, just like introduction, like 1, 2, 3, 5-minute videos that just kind of talk about like core concepts, right? That in a little different way than we did today, but you know,
super powerful, short to the point, but
yeah, short to the point. Like, these are the things, like, here are core things that just to like get you started and understanding what needs to happen in order to just be, quote, normal around food. And and my blog, people like love, if you want to go even deeper, I mean, check out the video training series at stopfightingfood.com for sure. But also, like, people binge read my blog, for no pun intended. Go to IsabelFoxenDuke.com. There's just like tons of awesome, I mean, you could just read. You'll learn so much just by like quickie reading the blog post right on the homepage of my website. I mean, it reads like a book, like they're organized kind of like a book. Like, you just go through it. You'll learn a ton. Make sure, I mean, the main thing is make sure you get on my email list, because I'm always sending out like new stuff. There's like a little email nurture funnel that will also teach you a lot of just boom, like, here are introductory things to get you started. Kind of when you sign up for my email list, you'll kind of get like a series of emails that'll teach you kind of the fundamentals of getting started with this work.
So good.
And yeah.
And so I'm going to, like I said, I'll leave all that for y'all down in the comment, down in the description box below. But Isabel is such a powerful teacher. I highly recommend checking it all out. And thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Part 2 eventually. But anyway, have a great day. And again, thank you. And all y'all, check out the links below. All right. Talk soon.